if you can pull in that data, the individual customer data, then you are making that experience so much better. And people are going to keep coming back to you because they expect you to continually give a consistent experience.
Welcome to the AI for Creative Entrepreneurs podcast, where we guide you through the weird and wonderful landscape of artificial intelligence. I am Rob Marsh.
And I'm Kira Hug. We are the founders of the Copywriter Club, and our goal is to help you stay ahead of the curve. We'll show you how to use these new AI tools to maximize your creativity, simplify your work and life, and reinvent your creative career so AI works for you and hopefully not against you.
So whether you are a copywriter, a marketer, or a creative professional of any kind, join us as we explore the intersection of AI, creativity, and your career.
More and more marketers will transition into their new role as AI marketing specialists, as more and more companies will look to fill that gap in AI marketing that currently exists in so many teams. In today's episode of the AI for Creative Entrepreneurs podcast, we're joined by Ruth Favela, an AI marketing specialist at tomorrow.io, who shares not only how she's landed multiple AI marketing positions in her career, but also how tomorrow.io is revolutionizing the way business adapts to extreme weather events. With the launch of Gale, the world's first weather and climate generative AI, Ruth and her team are helping companies make operational decisions based on the ever-changing weather patterns. In today's conversation, we explore the ins and outs of Ruth's role and how she uses AI tools like ChatGPT, Phrase.io, and Descript to streamline content creation and the challenges and opportunities she encounters in her work. So whether you're a business owner, a creative, a copywriter, or someone just interested in the evolving role of AI in marketing and maybe even weather forecasting, because why not? This episode is sure to be worth a listen.
But before we get to our interview with Ruth, this podcast is sponsored by our new AI course called AI for Copywriters, Creatives, Content Writers, basically AI for anyone who could use AI tools in their business. And here's what we have on tap inside this course to help you feel confident using AI tools in your business while still achieving or creating a distinctive voice and style for the work that you do. There are 10 things that you need to know before you write a prompt so that what you get back from the AI generative tool isn't direct, but it's actually usable ideas, insights, and even copy. 5 lessons and modules to help you understand generative AI, what it is, and ChatGPT in particular, including a really important one about the legal and ethical risks of using generative AIs. More than a dozen lessons with demonstrations of various prompts that you can use in your business today. We've also included a prompt book with more than 109 different prompts that you can borrow, still rewrite, and use in your own business. And with these prompts in your pocket, you're going to be ready to use AI for all kinds of different writing and creative tasks. We also share 29 different ways to use ChatGPT in your writing business. We promise that you will find a few ideas here that you haven't even thought of yet. And we've included a toolkit with 100 different writing tools for you to try. And in addition to that toolkit, a prompt one-pager that you can print out, keep on your desk to guide you each time that you use ChatGPT or any other AI tools. But what you really get with this course is the ability to use generative AIs in your business to be more creative, to be more productive, to be more efficient. It's really, really worth the investment. Go to thecopywriterclub.com/AI4C for more information.
Yeah, and what Rob did not mention is that in this course, we continue to update the tools, the demos, the prompts, and we continue to add to it. Rob, I know you're putting a lot of time to making sure it's relevant and up to date because the space changes so quickly. So if you jump into this course, we want to make sure that you have access to all future updates and you don't have to pay extra for any of those updates. It's just part of the package. Yeah. Okay, let's kick off our episode with Ruth. Why don't we start off just with your story and how you ended up getting into AI?
Yeah. So My name is Ruth. I'm like 5 years into my marketing career. And I started off as an editor at an insurance brokerage, actually. I was editing social media posts and blogs and that kind of thing for like 20 different topics at this insurance company. And back then, I didn't know anything about AI. I didn't even know it was something that people were using to help speed up any kind of marketing, any kind of anything. And after about a year and a half at this insurance company, I saw a listing for a customer support AI startup. And I applied, not thinking I would get it. I was just like, oh, I'll play on this on the whim. And so I got my start in AI at a startup called Forethought. They're an AI for customer service product, basically an AI chatbot. And while I was there, I had to learn how AI worked. Like part of their onboarding process included a meeting with one of the execs who had built the product essentially. And so he kind of walked you through what AI was, how it worked within the product. And like I was hired on as their first content hire, their second marketing team hire. So I really had this job of, hey, Ruth, go stand up content. Like, go figure out what people are looking for. And if you are looking for like a customer support chatbot, you aren't Googling, like, what is the best chatbot out there, right? Like, you're trying to figure out what are these smaller problems or like what are the other topics, right? Very top of funnel content is like what I was trying to write. And a lot of it had to be educating the audience on how AI worked for them. So I was literally writing blogs on like there's still a blog that ranks right now called What is Natural Language Understanding? And that ranks like seventh for that company. And so I was writing stuff like that to these customer support leaders, teaching them that this is how AI worked and this is how it could help them accelerate these things. And so I feel like I got lucky just in the sense of I fell into it and I had to learn how it worked for the product. And from there, I like was just exposed to AI products because when you worked in the B2B space, what is everyone trying to sell you? Other like other products, right? Other pieces of software. Um, and so I was essentially using AI before it was cool. And that company too was like built on generative AI models. So while that is like the big thing right now that everyone is talking about, like I was learning about it a year ago, more than a year ago. And I was using tools like Phrase and Descript, which write like are AI tools, but they're not like ChatGPT and they aren't built on OpenAI. But I was using them before there was all this hype. And from there, I was actually laid off in November, which ended up being great for me, honestly. But I was laid off and I was kind of trying to figure out what comes next. I have all this experience using AI tools, working at an AI company, or maybe I'll go work at another AI company. And so for a few months, I was contracting for another AI startup who was a pre-Series A startup. So they had like 20 employees. I was hired on as a contractor to lead their marketing content. And I was like, okay, how do I do this? How do I learn about this new industry, this new company that is tackling these completely different verticals? Like I went from, we were using AI for software to they're called tag up. They're AI for industrial machine efficiency, like operational efficiency. So they had machine learning models that could predict if a wind turbine was going to fail, they could predict that that turbine was going to fail and it was going to be inoperable and they were going to have to do maintenance on it. And those machine learning models could help you or could help a business save money on operational costs and maintenance costs, right? Like if you have unplanned downtime, you are losing a day's worth of being able to use your asset. And so I had to learn how to be able to talk about that, how to be able to talk to these different audiences. And I was building landing pages for them. And that's when I started using ChatGPT because I was like, I need to learn about these different audiences. And I don't know how to do this fast. Let me go talk to a robot. So I started using ChatGPT to learn about different verticals, to learn about how like things worked because I had to create personas. I was creating specific messaging to like 4 or 5 different personas within one vertical. And I was doing that for 5 different landing pages. How do I do that at scale quickly when I'm on a 3-month contract? I was using AI and it truly helped me like so much. And from there, when I was at TagUp, tomorrow IO actually posted a listing for an AI marketing specialist and I applied. And then I got the job and I started with them 6 weeks ago. And since then, the past 6 weeks have included me being in the product, being in the platform, learning about our customers, learning literally everything. And like the whole point of my job as well is like, hey, Ruth, learn the product, learn how we're talking about this, learn about our content. I am being tasked to use AI to help speed up content, social media, and anything related to lead generation, and basically educating the rest of the people that I work with on how to use AI tools to their advantage. We do AI workshops at Tomorrow. Like we're doing those once a month, I think, right now. And I did the first one where I essentially taught the entire company how to use ChatGPT and how to talk to it and how to think about how large language models work, because a lot of people are speaking to ChatGPT very generically, right? Like they're asking these things, they're telling it to do these things without giving it any parameters, any specifications, because they don't understand how that model is working and
Yeah.
like what it's doing at its core. So if I can communicate that and tell everyone like the model isn't thinking, it's not going to assume what you want. You have to give it parameters and give it constraints, tell it to be something, and that is going to help you get better outputs. So I've just been in it. I've been listening to a lot of content from the Marketing AI Institute. I listen to their podcast weekly. I follow all of Paul's on Paul on LinkedIn and like all of his posts. And I'm truly just trying to like build an AI community for myself and see how that is going to help accelerate marketing efforts at Tomorrow.
Yeah, and for those who are maybe watching this or listening to this, if this is the first episode, we interviewed Paul on a previous podcast, and so people should go back and listen to that or watch that. But Ruth, what I really like about your career trajectory is not only are you working on AI products, but you're using AI in order to write about them, get the word out. For those who might not be clear, I'd love to just to dive into just a little bit about the products themselves. So you started out with AI and chat.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that, like how AI enables chat to be better than, if I'm, on the other side of a chat widget, whatever, and, talking back and forth with a potential customer. How does AI supercharge that?
Yeah. So at least at the company I was at, we took a company's own data, right? Like they had their own language models, machine learning models that were trained on a customer's own historical data, and they used their information to feed this chat, right? And so you are essentially talking to the company, and because we were able to train on that custom data, we were going to be able to give better information, right? Like custom tailored information to this individual who's looking for something specific.
And when you say that, you're talking about like it's not just saying the name, but you're
Yeah.
talking about like user information, product information, stuff that they've been exposed to that could get pulled into the chat dialog.
Yes, exactly. And like in chat, at least in customer support, there's this whole conversation around like improving the customer experience and how can you do that? Well, you want to create an omni-channel kind of support. Like if someone is reaching out to you on Facebook, you want to be able to talk to them using their information and not have it sound like a robot is speaking to you. And I don't know about you guys, but like my chatbot interactions have always been, "Hi, what can I help you do?" And it's like that's not what I asked you to do. That's not what I wanted. I wanted you to give me something specific to this issue without me needing to email, like without me needing to call or do anything, right? Like just give me a chat interaction where I can serve myself and go through the motions. And so if you can pull in that data, right, like the individual customer data, then you are making that experience so much better. And people are going to keep coming back to you because they expect you to continually give a consistent experience.
How common is that across the board now in businesses with the unique chatbots with all of our data, or is that still rare across the board?
That is, it's honestly, it's still rare. Like
Yeah,
there
feels
aren't
like it.
companies like a lot of chatbots right now are built on if then statements, right? Like if this is what you're dealing with, then this is what I'm going to give you. And while that is machine learning, it's not really conversational AI that is being able to use that information and have a conversation with you. So, like, while I was at this company, I spent a lot of time writing content around the keyword conversational AI, which honestly now I would say that is what we've moved to calling it generative AI because like it's learned all this information and it's able to spit something back at you based on what it's learned. So like I've kind of just seen that shift in the name that it's had change. And like, I still think conversational AI is related to generative AI. And they've like done some changing in their messaging. And that's what they're calling themselves now is like a generative AI chatbot.
Hmm.
So it's cool. And like, from my time there, I had to learn a lot about like what is the future of customer support. And like there are a bunch of reports you can find out there. People predict that, so many more companies are going to be using AI powered chatbots, tools, whatever, in their workflows, in their processes. And I think because there's such a big hype around it right now, that's going to come even faster. And companies are going to be looking for ways to implement AI in any part of their business. And like a lot of the times that's going to start with customer support because that's what is touching your customers the most.
So, okay, so then you went to the second company.
Yeah.
What did that product do, and how was AI enabling people to do things better with that?
Okay. Say you are a director of facilities at a university. You are in charge of energy management and how the energy is working, right? Like you want to reduce your carbon footprint, you want to reduce carbon outputs. How can you do that? Optimize energy efficiency. And then at TagUp, we could help you optimize that efficiency using their machine learning models because they could take in all the information related to what you're trying to optimize the efficiency for and find ways to optimize it based on specific modeling. So like they had 4 different products and I can't recall all of them right now, but the biggest one was asset failure risk, being able to predict if something was going to fail. So like on a university campus, your like cooling system and your HVAC in every single building needs to be up to code and up to date, right? How can you reduce carbon output and energy usage using AI to predict when you need to fix things, when you can turn things off, when you can like use less power in your system. So again, they were taking in all your information and spitting out new information using their machine learning models. And that was a little different because that wasn't generative AI, right? But it was still like you take in information, you train it on models and data, and then you get your output related to whatever you're trying to accomplish.
So being able to, yeah, predict failures or load, and being able to shift, like
Yes.
usage to different time frames when maybe energy is cheaper. Yeah, just having that predictive ability. I get it. Okay, yeah, sounds
Yeah.
fascinating. And I mean, fascinating from the standpoint that like
Mhm.
a lot of these boring businesses, it's not necessarily what you see on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, but actually can completely change the way that we do business, and change the profitability of a company or organization. So yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool because from there I also got this exposure to, okay, how's the world affecting climate? Because in the end, that company was like, hey, we can help you reduce carbon pollution and how much energy you're wasting by like providing you with these models that help you predict these things. From there, I was like, well, what else are we using AI for? And I learned about Tomorrow IO where they're using AI for climate related reasons to keep people safe, to keep businesses operating and to keep governments in the know of what they need to be aware of. Because as it stands right now, a lot of the world doesn't have weather coverage. They don't have accurate weather coverage. I don't know if you know this, but 5 billion people on this planet do not have like accurate radar coverage over them. And so Tomorrow is trying to change that by being the world's leading climate and security platform. And we are like taking in our own data while also taking in data from all of the other national weather services. Like we use information from NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. But like NOAA has all this information. They don't have the power to take that data and do something with it. They just don't. They are a governmental body and they're a bunch of red tape. So that's why companies like Tomorrow are using that information with their own proprietary models to spit out accurate forecasts and to better predict what's going on with the climate. And especially as weather volatility continues to increase, as we see these changes in severe weather, there's just so much going on with the weather that we need to really start thinking about how we are going to
Adapt.
adapt and also continue to like succeed in business
Yep.
and in what we're trying to do with our governments as well. And so I've kind of like seen this like, okay, AI for online usage, AI for machines in a broad sense, and now hey, here's this very specific thing that we're trying to target and change for the better. We just released the world's first weather AI, which summarizes weather forecasts and turns them into operational messages for your business, for your government. And we are making a lot of headway just in how AI is starting to change that. And so I think it's really cool that Tomorrow has hired an AI marketing specialist because they see the value in, okay, we are using AI in our product. well, where else can we use AI? And I think they started with marketing because that's where a lot of the change is being seen, is like there's so many AI tools for marketers right now that it's kind of like crowded a little bit in like what works, what do I use? And I just feel like I've had this good exposure to it from the beginning before it was all like everyone use AI, everyone start using ChatGPT. And so I've just kind of like grown with it a little bit. And now I get to figure out how are we going to use this to expand marketing content efforts. Like I am in charge of managing our socials. I'm trying to scale messaging there, right? Like how can we automate a lot of what's going on? How can I speed up some of these tasks that seem to take forever? And that's where tools like ChatGPT are coming in for me. And it's been just really fun to see what else they can do and how people are starting to use them outside of content creation.
Yeah, and I want to hear how you're using them because I want to speed up
Yeah.
our processes. But before that, I just would like to talk about how you positioned yourself to get these types of roles, because you've had 3 of these roles, AI marketing
Yeah.
related roles, and there are more and more copywriters, content writers who are seeking these positions and kind of ready to just make a minor pivot. Maybe they don't
Mm-hmm.
have 5 years of experience, but they're jumping in and they're interested
Mm-hmm.
in a similar role. So, I guess could you just talk
Yeah.
about like where you're looking for these opportunities, what advice you would give to a writer who is interested in a similar path?
Yeah, the biggest tip I would give is to market yourself as someone who is willing to learn and just willing to be as well rounded as a marketer as you can be. When I applied to Forethought, that first AI company, they were hiring a content writer. And I had written content. They weren't really looking for anything related to AI. And I got lucky because the person who hired me, his name is Chet, he's like a really good friend now. But he wasn't looking for someone who knew how to do it. He was looking for someone who was going to learn and who wanted to figure it out. And so I think if you are just like, yeah, I want to learn it, I want to try using these tools, I want to give it a go, then you're going to be better off than someone who's like, I'm kind of like stuck in this and like, no, I think this works and I wouldn't want to try to use something new. I'm the kind of person who just like, I like to try things. I like to try everything. I have a list of tools that I'm like, okay, what works here, what's working there, like is this worth using? No. And as long as you're willing to learn, I think you can like position yourself however you'd like. But after Forethought, when I was applying for my next role, like I was very hesitant early in my career to use LinkedIn to build my network, to talk to people, to reach out to others, right? And when I started at Forethought, I had to learn about the startup world. I had to dive in. Well, where can I go learn the most from it? From everyone else on LinkedIn who is posting about being at a startup and being in this B2B space, and how and like learning from other marketers. Like I really wanted to just connect with other people, follow more people that I could like gain more knowledge from. And that set me up to be able to apply for these other roles because I had network connections that I could reach out to and talk to about content and AI things and like how they saw things growing. I was using LinkedIn to expand my network, to position myself as someone who wanted to learn all these things, and just using that and leveraging that. Like I got my job at Tomorrow because I followed the CMO of Jasper AI and she shared the job
Oh, wow.
from the CMO at Tomorrow. And so I saw it on my feed and I was like, that's cool. What is this? And so I went to Dan Slagan, he's my CMO. I went to Dan's LinkedIn and I learned about him and I learned about the company. And then I started like, I was like, oh, I'm connected to some people who are connected to the marketing team. Interesting. Well, like do I do it? And so like I just saw like I would not have seen the job at Tomorrow had I not decided to expand my network and follow other people who were in the AI space. And because I followed Megan, the CMO at Jasper, I saw the job and I was able to apply for it, not knowing if anything was going to come of it. But because I was like, yay, this is fun. Like, what a great learning opportunity that could be. I applied for it and like something great came of it. I wasn't scared of being rejected when I
Yeah.
applied to this because I was like, let's see what happens. This is cool. Does that answer your question?
No, it does. I mean, it sounds like you're saying embody the learning mentality, a growth mentality. So you're saying I might
Yes.
not know everything, but I'm willing to try and
Yes.
test tools. And then what feels even more important is building those connections in the space where people are talking about AI. And that can be many different
Yes.
spaces, but it's definitely happening on LinkedIn. And that's where you'll hear
Mm-hmm.
about those jobs. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
not going to see it.
Exactly. And the thing too is like I'm not the kind of person who's posting every day on LinkedIn and like trying to, be a thought leader and that kind of thing. Like I really use LinkedIn to follow other people, to join in on conversations, to connect with others that I've like worked with. And now that I'm in this role, I feel the need to start posting about things a little bit. Um but like because I started connecting with others and just like, hey, what can I learn? What is going to help me grow? I was able to find this job. And I think if you embody that mentality of like what is going to help me grow, what is going to help me be the better writer, the better editor, the better whatever, it's going to be exposing yourself to these tools and these other people who are using these tools and talking about them.
So while we're talking about jobs in AI, the one thing that we hear a lot, you maybe have heard this too, is AI is taking everybody's jobs. And you're in it, you're seeing what the AI tools can do, and clearly they're doing things to the jobs that we work. But you also seem to be thriving with writing jobs about AI. What's your take on that? Like, where do you see the industry? And I know this is a really broad question, and so
Yeah.
this is really just like where you see things going. Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? A combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's an opportunity for everyone to use a tool that is going to help them accelerate like how efficiently they do their job. But I also think like I've seen a lot of like AI might not replace employees, but employees who are using AI are going to replace employees who don't. And I think there's like a lot of truth to that. And I think that's why companies are starting to hire prompt engineers and AI specialists who can come in and teach everyone else why they're important and why being able to leverage them is going to be to your advantage and help you in your career, which is overall going to help the business. And like we've had the conversation of AI is going to take people's jobs. Well, now we're seeing large companies like bring in AI and implement it in their processes. I just read an article on LinkedIn about like bigger enterprise companies starting to use this. And I think we're starting to figure out like, okay, we can work around copyright issues. We can work around this kind of stuff. And we can really leverage this across different teams for different things. And there's just so much value in that and power in being able to say, yes, I see value in this tool and I want everyone in my team to use it. And that's what I really love about tomorrow is like, that's what they saw. They were like, oh, wow, AI is starting to change things. Well, let's hire someone who has been using them, has been using these tools, is familiar with what's going on, and can stay educated in the space and educate everyone else.
Do you see the opportunity more so for freelancers to sell one-off projects or even offer consulting services, or do you see it as like a retainer or going in-house?
Ooh, as someone who was on a contract using AI tools, I definitely see how this could help like consultants and freelancers who are working for multiple companies and different clients because it not only accelerates how much work you can do, but it also accelerates how much knowledge you can keep in your arsenal about those different companies. Like it would be really hard, I think, to have 10 different clients and like have to keep information on each different one and their different verticals, their different personas. Well, AI can help you speed that process up. Like I've freelanced in the past before and I feel like I have to have my own CRM. Like how do I keep all this information in one place and oh, and now I need to write an article about this one about this one topic for this one client that isn't related to anything else, but it's like something like that's where AI can help speed up the brainstorming, the ideation, the like the outlining processes, the like being able to summarize your own notes. Like that's what I've been using. Like I use it for summarization so much, just like being able to summarize stuff that I've written, stuff that I've emailed to people, like, hey, summarize this really long email. I need 3 bullets from it. Like if you can do that at scale for yourself, then you're going to be such a valuable partner for any client. But I think you will also just see value in like, oh, I can do this for 10 different clients. I could do this in house for someone where I'm not just focused on this one client. I'm focused on the entire business and how AI and marketing is supporting everything there. And one thing too that I think has helped me a lot is like as a marketer, knowing and being able to understand how content is affecting the entire business and like just seeing like oh my writing affects web traffic and conversions and like lead gen form fills and like that kind of thing, being able to tie those individual tasks has also helped me like okay, I know that if this one piece of content is affecting 5 different things, what within that process can I use an AI tool to do that is going to help me affect even more down the line? That mentality has helped me be even more valuable in house because I'm not just thinking of this is my blog and my social media channel and this is where I'm distributing things. It's like, no, I'm thinking about the entire picture and how it's impacting every part of the business.
Okay, so I want to go back to Tomorrow AI. You kind of gives a little bit of a taste of
Yeah.
what Tomorrow does, but when I saw Tomorrow AI for weather, one of those things is like, what, wait a second, how does AI work with weather? Weather just happens. So tell us about some of the things that AI is doing with weather in order to benefit people, the stuff that you guys are doing at Tomorrow.
Yeah, so Tomorrow.io is the world's leading weather intelligence platform. We are a weather and climate security platform that helps people, businesses, governments plan, prepare, and adapt to weather related threats before they disrupt operations, before they disrupt organizations and stuff like that. So we have our own machine learning proprietary models in house. We're taking weather information from all over, basically helping businesses and governments operationalize weather data rather than, oh, it's going to be 30 degrees out today and it's going to be super windy. You should stay inside. That's not realistic for like an airline, right? Like JetBlue can't just turn off flights for the day when it's snowing, but what they can do is that they can plan around those. They can plan around weather storms, they can plan around like de-icing needs, and like use our platform to know when is the right time to act based on how the weather is. And we're helping like industries all over, like not just aviation, but in construction and
Seems like agriculture would have a
yeah.
ton
Oh
of
yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah, and down the line too, that's the goal. We're going to like be able to share our weather data with countries that are struggling with agricultural needs. It's getting wetter all over the world. It's getting drier. How can we plan around droughts? How can we plan around severe rainstorms? And how can we help these businesses still operate based on how the weather is going to affect them? And we actually, like I said earlier, we just released the world's first weather AI. We're calling it Gale. And what Gale can do is they can summarize weather for you and turn it into an operational summary rather than just having a list of what's going on time by time, right? It's like, hey, during this time you need to go out and you need to secure your loads. You need to like get your planes off the tarmac. Make sure your truckers aren't on the roads during this severe snowstorm. And we're really just helping to prevent risk to these businesses and to the individuals who are working for these companies. I think in the end, Tomorrow.io is really trying to help people continue their businesses and ultimately like save lives that are affected by severe weather.
And your role, it's AI content specialist, AI marketing
Yeah.
specialist?
I'm an AI marketing specialist and my focus is on social lead gen and content on like anything related to content, honestly. I'm also doing some like product marketing stuff as well as event marketing. Like I'm really all of it. Like, how can AI help do all of it? And I that's where I set myself that mentality of like, okay, how does content affect everything in business? It affects everything. It's not just your blog. It's not just your social. It's your like, what are you doing for events? What are you doing for product? What are you doing for demand gen? It all works together. And I think hiring someone in content who has used AI is going to accelerate every part of that. And that's kind of like what we're hoping for down the line. But we'll see as we go since I've been here for 6 weeks.
Well, let's talk about what you're doing
Yeah.
specifically. It could be, I mean, because you're doing a lot. So maybe we focus on social media and lead gen or just content, but how are you currently using the tools to speed it up, to connect the
Yeah.
dots? What does that look like?
So a few tools that I'm using the most are like I use ChatGPT obviously, but it's not like the only tool I use. Like
Yeah.
I use for content creation, I use a tool called Phrase.io, which helps you create new content based on current ranking content. Like if I plug in a keyword, say I want to write a blog about weather API. Well, I type in the keyword and it shows me like the top results for what is ranking for that keyword. And I can create an outline, I can create a bunch of stuff based on what is ranking, but do it better, right? Like I can see, oh, the top result has this many keywords and it tackles all of these FAQ questions, but the third result is hitting on something that's completely different. Well, how can I do something like that that's even better that actually uses all that information? And I use this is like the third company that I've used that tool at, so that's been really great. We use something called Descript. I don't know if you guys have heard of Descript. Love
Script, yeah,
Descript.
it's really, really useful when it comes to
Oh,
podcasts and
oh yeah.
interviews, that kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tools for repurposing content, because if you have a webinar, cut it up. Cut it up, turn it into 15 different snippets and turn those into social posts. So I use it for that. I use what else? ChatGPT for a slew of things, market research, brainstorming, like coming up with ideas. I have no idea how to reword something. Can you reword this for me? Like just seeing what it gives me. I also use GPT-4 Plus. So I have a subscription to that I used, which gives me like better outputs. We also have Jasper AI in house, which I'm honestly still trying to figure out how to use. But I'm using AI to kind of like hit the ground running, right? Like I've been in this role for 6 weeks. I am still learning about the product and our customers and our audience. So, how can I do that faster without me needing to wait a week to see if I really have this down? For example, we just published a blog about weather AI because we just launched Gale. And while weather AI is going to be something really, really cool in the future, it's not super high up in search volume right now. Like it's not something people are actively looking for all the time. And I had to, okay, like how can I tie in other questions into this? Like I asked ChatGPT for ideas. I used it to create the outline for the blog. And like while I had ideas and an outline, I was then, meeting with my director of marketing and be like, hey, is this how I talk about it? Like, is this how I should position this? Is this how I frame this? And so I'm really using it as like a starting point, and then I take it and I go get feedback, and then I run with it. I run with like, the feedback and my preliminary, whatever I've gotten. And then I'm editing, I'm talking to people, I am getting other information. Like, it's really removing like the 2 to 3 hours that you would spend doing the initial research for something brand new. And it's changing that for me completely, because what's brand new is this company. Like, how can I learn about this faster? Well, like doing market research. Like, for example, there is a term within retail and trucking called enterprise resilience. I had no idea what that is. I got some context from some of the people I work with, but then I was like, well, what would this mean to someone who like has a trucking company? And so I asked ChatGPT, I was like, you are an owner of a trucking company. What does enterprise resilience mean to you? And that answer was something I was able to bring back to my team and be like, does any of this resonate with you guys? Like, I would love input because I don't know. And I was able to run with feedback from there and go create more stuff or write more stuff to that. I'm using it for content. I'm using it to create social posts, but then I'm editing those social posts. I am not the kind of person who like, let's have ChatGPT write something and publish it immediately. Like, don't do that. There's so much value in being able to like go in and add voice back to an output from something like ChatGPT, from something like Phrase. Even Notion has an AI writer right now, and I play around to see like, oh, how is this different from what Phrase could give me, from what ChatGPT could give me, and then how can I add my own thoughts into it to make it my own? Because it's not mine right now. Like, I want to make it mine. I want to make this into the voice of the company. And there are tools out there that do that for you immediately. Like, we're trying to figure out like, is that something worth using if we can do the beginning of it with something like ChatGPT? So really speeding up like the start of a process and using it to learn about who we're targeting and like what they need to hear and what they want to hear.
So you mentioned having to go back in sometimes to add voice back in or to edit. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously there are some things that AI is not yet perfect at. Where
Yep.
where are the other holes that you see? So when you sit down to do your job, what are the
Mm-hmm.
things that you have to do that AI isn't helping with yet, or where there's opportunities maybe for future AIs to step in?
So, for example, ChatGPT can't give you context. It cannot give you context to anything. You could tell it to write you a social post related to an announcement that your company made, right? Like someone posted an announcement, hey, ChatGPT, turn this into a social post. Well, that social post, like, it's about that, but how does that related to anything that you're already doing? So, like, I am, while I am using it to like get the message, right? The core piece of what I need, I am then recontextualizing what I'm saying and bringing it back to the overall picture of what is going on, like with the company and like this product and what we're announcing. It also can't do multiple things for me. Like, I'll ask it, like, I'll set up a thread of do this task. Let's get started with this one task. Now do that 4 different times so that I don't have to. It can't. It runs out of juice. Like, even ChatGPT 4 will stop producing content for me after like the fourth one that I have it do. So
What would
like,
be an example of that?
For example, I share a weather report on Tuesdays. If I wanted to turn that weather report into something that I could share to 5 individuals, and I've tried like trying to use ChatGPT to scale messages, kind of, rather than producing one message for me. Hey, ChatGPT, I need you to write me 5 emails, and here is a list of the people that you are addressing these emails to. These are the subject lines and preview texts, though. So use this. Here are the people. I have like, I'll tell it to write those 4 or 5 emails, and it'll just stop generating a response after like the third email. Like it'll just
It's
stop.
like, I'm done. This was a good day.
I'm tired.
Yeah.
And
Keep
I
going, I
like,
think, is the prompt that I do the most. It's like, keep going, keep going, keep
see,
going.
I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of telling it to keep going.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
it
gosh.
will. It'll pick up right where it left off and give you another,
It's
spit or
like,
whatever.
okay, all right.
Good to know. See, I didn't even know that. Like, but see, there are things that I'm still learning. Like, I didn't know you could do that. Another thing that I have like a hard time it doing is like feeding it a lot of stuff to train on, right? Where I'm like, hey, I have this transcript. I need you to like, I want you to help me pull out insights. But then that transcript is like 6,000 to 10,000 words long, and you can't feed it the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Frustrating.
And then it's yeah, and then I'm just like, well, how do I reframe the first prompt so that I can keep giving it information? Because even when I think I've framed it correctly,
Yeah.
it's not giving me the opportunity to add more. So like there are just like a lot like AI is not good at helping you write really long things either. And that's where like I have this problem of like, hey, I need you to learn everything about this one topic. Here's all your background information. How do I then give it that background information and start having it give me something relevant to the information I just fed it without having it get stuck? And like, I don't know if you guys have played around with image creation, but like, I'm so bad at using Midjourney and like Dolly. Like, I, in a dream world, would love to be able to create my blog graphics with something like that so that I don't have to ask my designer every single time we post a new blog if she can spend, 3 4 hours doing something for me. And that's actually something I'm also trying to explore is like, how else can designers use AI?
Yeah.
Like Canva has released so many AI features within their tool, but like a lot of designers are just like, no, I'm just going to create in Canva, like how I've been doing it before. And it's like,
Right.
but look at their AI tools. It's so cool. um, like it just can't do like a lot of that stuff super well yet. And it's because like AI hallucinates. And if people understand that, like, hey, yeah, it's going to give you something fake every time, then you like understand to take what AI does with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, if you find some designers who are using it well, we'd like to chat with them on the show. How are you teaching and educating? I love that you're offering that internally too.
Yeah.
You're educating the entire company. I guess what advice would you give to anyone listening who might want to do that within their company, or they might want to offer that as a consultant and come into a company for a day's workshop?
Hmm. My advice would be, so I follow a couple of marketing tech leaders who have turned themselves into like, hey, I can come in and teach your company how to use
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT. They have really like created an audience for themselves on their LinkedIn profiles is kind of like
Yeah.
the avenue that I see these people taking, right? They either know people who are wanting to learn about these things or they've created an audience for themselves. And if you're one of those people who's creating audiences, then great, keep educating your audience and setting yourself up as someone who is going to share that information and not just like gatekeep it. Because that's what you'll see a lot, like, oh, subscribe to my newsletter to learn more. It's like, no, just share it. Just
Yeah.
share it out. Like, tell people what you're learning. I am in the Marketing AI Institute Slack community, and I follow so many of those people on LinkedIn, the people who are in the community, and a few of them have now turned themselves into like, come learn what I'm sharing on LinkedIn about AI. And I think if you can just position yourself as someone who is willing to try these tools and then teach others about it, then you're going to be so much better off. I kind of got roped into teaching my company about ChatGPT because we started an AI pilot group within the company, kind of like get someone from every area of the business. And we meet every couple weeks to talk about how we're using AI. Like, have we learned anything new? Has anyone found a new tool? We come together, and from that group, we were like, hey, we want to start an AI workshop where we show the rest of the company what we're learning because not everyone at the company is using these tools. So I think facilitating from the top down. Luckily, I had like my chief of staff who was running this group who was like, "Hey, I want to do this," and I'm like, "Okay, do you want me to do the first one? Because you just hired me, and I feel like that would make sense." um, and like ChatGPT 4 at least came out what last month, beginning of March. Like the
Yeah.
day I was hired was the like that same week was the week that ChatGPT was like everywhere and everyone was going crazy for it. And it kind of like took me a while to start using it, honestly, because I was trying to learn about this company. So I feel like I'm the kind of person who collects all my notes for anything I'm learning. I have so many notes in Notion, in my iCloud notes, and that kind of thing. And I told my manager, I was like, hey, yeah, I have all these notes and stuff. She goes, oh, do you want to like start sharing that? And I'm like, sure. Okay. How do you want me to do that? And so I did that AI pilot workshop to show everyone how ChatGPT worked. Like the core thing of the whole presentation was like GPT is a large language model that at its core is simply predicting the next most likely word based on the previous word. People don't get that. And
Yeah.
so if I can help you understand like, hey, it's going to hallucinate, it's going to give you fake information, it's not going to do this well because at its core it's literally telling you the next word that it thinks you want to see based on what you gave, based on what it's given you before. Like, I think being able to give everyone that mentality and like, hey, approach these AI tools like newbies, like you are a child learning something new. And if you have this mentality of like, okay, this is a new thing, I'm learning it and I need to understand how it functions, you're going to be better off. And like being able to teach everyone else about it is going to be to your benefit if you can understand how it's working. And that's just like that's also just something about me that I like doing. Like if I can explain something to someone, then I feel like I actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn. So you're talking about the tools, and
Hmm.
there's so many tools for writers that we've got a list in the our AI course with over 100 writing tools. So I like that you're advising. Just try them out, figure out how to use
Hmm.
them. My final question for you before we run out of time here, Ruth: what are you most excited about when it comes to AI? Maybe it's something that you're doing, with the company that you're working for. Maybe it's tools. What are you really jonesing for?
Ooh, I don't know yet. I think there's so much going on that I'm just excited to see how learning it all is going to help us be better marketers. Because that like my goal is to be a well-rounded marketer. Like I want to understand how things work. I want to understand how this is excelling business and helping sales and helping everything else. And I think AI is only going to help us just be better marketers overall and better employees. Like specifically at tomorrow, I am really excited to see where our weather AI goes. We have a bunch of stuff in the works this year, and AI is only going to accelerate our product and how we are building this company. And that's just like something that's brand new to me. It's like, okay, let's use AI to speed up what we're doing and to help have the greatest product related to weather on the planet while also just using it ourselves and seeing what other benefits there are to the business and to individuals.
Well, I'm going to ask my other question, which, ends on a negative note, but it's important to ask what scares you or possibly keeps you up at night or makes you a little uneasy because you are in the depths of AI.
It scares me to see how good these models can be and how like if GPT-4 can create content that looks like I wrote it, what is GPT-5 going to do? Well, like 6, like 10. Like it's I'm scared of that. A little bit just like and it's not scared of like, oh no, it's coming. It's like scared in a well, what does that mean for the future?
Yeah.
What does that mean for millions of employees and what does that mean for the world? Like and also, is this actually something that people are going to be taking on in this happy go lucky mood, right? Like, is everyone going to be welcoming of it? How, like, what's going to happen when people are starting to not want to use it and they're averse to it and that kind of thing? I'm just curious to see it all happen.
Not everyone's welcome to it. We
Oh
definitely
my
know
gosh.
that. Okay. And I know we are at the end of our time. Where can
Yeah, perfect.
our listeners, the writers listening, creatives listening, go if they want to connect with you and become friends, learn more from you? Where can they go?
You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, just Ruth Favela on LinkedIn. You can also follow tomorrow.io on LinkedIn to see what is going on in the world of weather AI and how things are changing because things are changing and it's really, really exciting.
Before we wrap, I'm curious, Rob, did you have any takeaways from this conversation?
So I think my main takeaway from this episode goes back to something that a previous guest said. It might have been Sam Woods or Rob Lennon talking about the potential for AI to disrupt all kinds of industries. Oftentimes, I think we'll have a new tool come along. We're like, oh yeah, I can see how I might use this in my business. But then every once in a while, there's something like, electricity or the internet where it applies to all businesses across the world. And just seeing how AI is impacting the ability to talk about weather events and its impact on business, I think is really significant. So I'm excited to see how AI can impact even more businesses as we talk to future guests. Just knowing that this isn't a flash in the pan, it's not just changing, copywriting, content writing, the world that we live in, but literally businesses in almost every possible niche. How about you, Kira? What did you take away?
I mean, that stood out to me as well. Just talking to Ruth got me so excited about these huge problems that really keep me up at night because it feels so overwhelming. And to know that these AI tools can help solve some of these problems, or at least attempt to solve some of these big problems, like weather management, as climate changes and shifts and becomes more damaging potentially to people and more of a hindrance to day-to-day activities, work, life, etc. So I just felt so excited. It was like, yes, because we often talk about the downside of, on this show so far, we've only had a handful of episodes, but we've already talked about the dark side of AI. We'll continue to talk about that. There's serious concerns, ethical concerns, and that's a part of the conversation. But it's also refreshing to talk with someone like Ruth, who is working on something that is so monumental, and to remind myself of the upside and why this is important. And so to me, this was a really refreshing, much needed episode and conversation. In addition to that, I loved what Ruth shared about LinkedIn connections. And especially if you want to really step into more of an AI marketing specialist role, which some of us do, some of us don't, to build those connections on LinkedIn. That's where a big part of the conversation is happening. It's happening in other social media platforms as well. But for Ruth specifically, she's built so many connections on LinkedIn, and that's where she saw this job opportunity for her current role. So if this is something that interests you, it's really about making those connections and following those conversations, because otherwise you might not see those job postings and opportunities. The last takeaway I'll share is just the importance of industry knowledge, right? Like Ruth talked about how she had to kind of learn everything about these different companies and these different spaces that she's jumped into and go really deep into that knowledge base. But it also is a great reminder that we're all capable of doing that we could go really deep into one space and one industry, but we can also jump around, and we are capable, once we understand the AI landscape, to jump into a particular industry and go really deep. And that is something we can bring to the table to say, I've worked in these spaces, I understand how these spaces work, and now I know I can understand and learn how your industry works because I have that background in AI and content and strategy and copy already. I know I can do that for you too. So that stood out.
All right. We want to thank Ruth for joining us on the podcast to talk about how AI is solving big problems in weather, as well as her specific career and how she has mastered several different jobs in the content world in AI. And once again, if you want to jump into that AI for Copywriters course, have all the future updates, go to thecopywriterclub.com/AI number 4C, AI4C.
And that is the end of this episode of the AI for Creative Entrepreneurs, a Copywriter Club podcast produced by Brandon Burton. If you enjoyed today's episode, please visit Apple Podcasts to leave a review of the show. I don't think we have any reviews of the show yet, so hopefully you leave a good one. And if you're catching this on YouTube, please leave a comment below to let us know your favorite takeaway from today's show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.